everyone. So we're moving on to Chapter 7, Displaying, Serving, and Dispensing and Discarding of Food. Um, so they always say that the eyes feast before the stomach, and to this end, the display and serving of your food is one of the most critical parts of your business. It also plays an important role in food safety. Um, so it's the first thing that your customers see, and it's the first step in an enjoyable dining experience for your guests. Excuse me. And in consequence, how successful the food premise will be. Equally important is how the food is going to be discarded so as not to attract the pests or create unsightly situation for guests, but also the similar to what we just discussed, the time and temperature that you're keeping things out in public view, and also protecting it from physical debris and dust. Uh, so food safety is especially critical during this display, serving, discarding process. Improper handling at this stage can lead to contamination and has serious health consequences. The primary goal of the practices here is to prevent foodborne illness by ensuring that food is protected while it's being displayed, served in a hygienic way, and disposed of safely to avoid attracting pests and causing the proliferation of disease. Uh, so to maintain safe food temperatures during display, you should be using a thermometer as we've covered before, and it should be used regularly. Monitoring is going to ensure that foods remain out of the temperature danger zone, again, that zone between 4 degrees and 60 degrees, and it's going to keep food out of the range, which again is very important to protecting the growth of bacterial and viral colonies within the food. So measures should also be taken to limit the client contact with the food and display as much as possible to prevent them from directly contaminating food. Excuse me again. Several methods that can help prevent contamination of the food during the display are things like sneeze guards, which should be installed to protect the food from droplets and airborne contaminants. You should have clean serving utensils, which should be provided and used to prevent direct contact with the food, and food should be kept covered whenever it's not being served, which reduces the exposure to potential airborne contaminants, and it maintains the food's freshness as well. You should always place mats, and utensil trays should always be deployed under the serving utensils in order to keep serving ends off of bare tables. And all the handles should be faced towards whoever is serving the food, whether that be the client or the server. You should always have all of the utensils put either on a mat or in a tray so that the handles are oriented toward the person who's going to be grabbing it, so you don't have a person grabbing at a handle and touching the business end of another spoon, fork, or whatever. When discarding old food, it should be discarded promptly right before the new food is added. You want to prevent the mixing of old and fresh batches of food, so you want to make sure that only fresh and safe food is available. So if you add in a new batch to an old batch of, say, rice, the old rice is going to be cultivating Bacillus cereus or some other pathogen, and you're going to mix them together, and that's going to contaminate the new rice. So you always want to keep separate batches separate. It also helps to maintain the overall quality and the safety of the food service. Adding continual batches to buffets, again, will lead to that mixture of bacteria from the old into the new. Safe food serving and dispensing require strict sanitary practice, so you minimize the risks. It'll include proper hand hygiene, the use of gloves where they're appropriate to use, clean utensils, proper serving procedure, again, with all those handles lined up in the right direction, making sure there's something underneath it so you're not touching bare table. In full service situations, the server should never directly interact with the food. It should always use an intermediary, so they shouldn't just be reaching in with their hands. It should always be using a scoop or tongs or some other tool to access the food. Um, in addition to discarding the old food, yet it's important to dispose of the single service items like paper cups, plates, plastic cutlery after each individual use. Reusing those can lead to contamination and increases the risk of spreading bacteria, since they can't really be cleaned effectively, and every time they are cleaned, they get degraded a little bit. In some cases, cleaning single-use materials can degrade the utensil itself, which can then lead to chemicals in the food or cause weakening and breakage while the client's eating, leading to the physical contamination. So just disposing of these right away, it keeps the work area sanitary and safe, and it prevents this kind of contamination. Your tables used for food service should be cleaned using a clean, damp cloth with mixture of soap and warm water, and then moistened with sanitizer and wiped and allowed to air dry. And this allows the proper contact time for the sanitizer to work. Again, you should be testing your sanitizer to make sure it's concentrated enough. And we'll get into those concentrations a little bit later. But in general, your bleach concentration, if you're using chlorine, should be around 100 parts per million. And if you're using a quaternary ammonia or other, it should be around 200 parts per million. Iodine is usable, but it's not really used that often and is really more used just for bar dishwashers or glass cleaning. Your table linens should be changed between each use and customer setting. The linens can be easily harbor bacteria, food particles, and other contaminants. So replacing them, make sure that each new diner has a clean and hygienic surface to eat off of. It also shows your clients that your premise takes the client experience seriously. No one wants to sit at a dirty tablecloth. So it supports your professional appearance while it reinforces good safety practice. So to end off this chapter, just maintaining food safety through all stages of handling requires attention to key details and key areas. You really need to make sure you're using your thermometer and selecting the correct type of thermometer and making sure that it's calibrated, as we covered in the last section. You need to make sure that your frozen foods are kept frozen, your refrigerated foods are kept at 4 degrees or lower. You need to make sure all your food is covered, your equipment is clean. You need to make sure your display is clear and all of your utensils are layered properly to avoid contamination.